Hallelujah, it's actually working. Hello, and welcome to Momentous Live, episode 125. I'm Tristan Jutra.
I'm Deja Custodi.
I'm Gray Williams, and apparently I was
taking a water break. All right. Well, so we're back after unscheduled rapid disassembly or rapid unscheduled disassembly last week with Restream not working. And sorry about that for anyone who cares. You may ask yourself, well, why didn't you just do it the next day? The reason is because sometimes you just have to back away and let things simmer down a little bit. Must control fist of death sort of situation. So we just took the opportunity to take a week off.
Yeah.
After troubleshooting for an hour, by the way.
Exactly.
So let's not be too hard on ourselves.
Not all of us were troubleshooting. I was just sitting there.
Well, I was too. It was all TJ. He was doing all the work, and I was like, can I push any buttons for you?
But we got it sorted out behind the scenes, and it's working now. So anyway, here we are. If you want to follow this train wreck, you can do so at momentus.tv/links, and our individual team members at momentus.tv/team, and the audio version at momentus.tv/podcast. So let's get started with a little bit of follow-up. One, just to correct the record, last month we were speaking about Microsoft's paid business versions of their Bing AI offerings. And we jumped right into the Bing Copilot pricing, and we're talking about their $30 a month offering, and whether that was maybe a bit too dear. Was it a cash grab, or was it a fair price given the immense costs in delivering these generative AI services? One thing that I failed to mention in that whole process is there's actually something called Bing Chat Enterprise, which gives you a reasonable amount of basic ChatGPT-like functionality, and that's actually included in certain tiers of Microsoft 365 subscriptions, such as Business Standard, Business Premium, and E3 and E5. Now, the Microsoft 365 Copilot is $30 per user on top of your regular subscription, but that is the stuff that gives you the in-depth tools embedded into the various Office applications and the in-depth analysis of spreadsheets and being able to generate PowerPoint presentations and. But I had failed to mention the fact that there was some basic Bing Chat Enterprise functionality included in a lot of the Microsoft 365 subscriptions. Of course, to my chagrin, not the level of subscription that we have for our business, which is Business Basic. So we might still have to pay a little bit extra if we want to enjoy those benefits. But in the meantime, some of us are still paying an extra, $20 US a month for Bing. Not for Bing, for ChatGPT Plus, which gives us GPT-4 functionality. Speaking of which, OpenAI has actually now just introduced ChatGPT Enterprise for businesses, which gives you no limits on the number of queries for ChatGPT with GPT-4 model. When you're paying, GPT Plus right now has, I think it's only something like 50 queries within 3 hours or something like that. They tweak it once in a while. But one of the big things is the number of tokens in the context window for a given conversation. Right now, GPT-4 maxes out at 8,000 tokens. And as we've discussed before, a token can be a word fragment or a word or sometimes an idea. And that can affect how much you can paste into a conversation and how much ChatGPT can kind of hold in its brain before it starts getting forgetful and losing the thread. Well, with GPT-4 for ChatGPT Plus managing about 8,000 tokens at once, with ChatGPT GPT-4 Enterprise, 32,000 token context window. So 4 times as much, which is great. And it's also faster. In addition to that, we've got some more data security and privacy protections, which are really a big concern for those who are using these tools for business. And then, not to be outdone, Tasia, you want to talk to us a little bit about what Google is offering? They also have a premium business feature just launching.
Yeah, we talked a little bit before about Duet AI for Google Workspace. So Google Workspace is already paid. I think it's $12 a month-ish US. And they were trickling out little features. It's across their whole ecosystem. So we're talking Docs and Gmail and Sheets and Slides and Meet and all the good
And that's
stuff.
MEET, right?
Correct. Not
The other
now.
Google Meet.
not the meat you eat, the meat you greet. Hey, there you go. So now they've announced today that it's going to be an additional $30 a month for all the souped up Duet AI features, which I'm actually a little bit surprised because I thought we were going to see a lot of these included in the $12 a month workspace fee. Call me naive. My naivete has gotten me in trouble before. But I think what they're doing here is basically just matching the competitors and saying, hey, okay, well, we can charge more for it. And I've tested some of these features already and they're so good. So it's like, you guys know I'm biased and I'm Mrs. Google over here, but it's like you give me that ability to soup up my everything in Drive, everything in the Google ecosystem. It's kind of a game changer for me because if you already work and live in the ecosystem and send your emails and do your team chats and organize your spreadsheets and do everything I already do in there, it's a no-brainer for me.
So one of the features that is built in is the visualization tools, and I'm glad to see that they're still as problematic as many of the other visualization tools out there, especially when it comes to groups of characters, in this case, illustrated characters in a classroom setting, when one teacher asked for a robot teacher in front of a chalkboard. And it still has a little bit of work to do in these in this department. But again, with refined prompts, you can tend to get better results as well. So again, just a quick little AI tool update from the Correcting the Record on Microsoft's offerings, and then those latest offerings from OpenAI and Google. In other news, this is something right up Gray's alley. iFixit, the purveyors of all sorts of parts and tools for those who are interested in repairing and servicing their own electronic devices, such as computers, smartphones, and more. They have been on a bit of a right to repair campaign the last few years, railing against the likes of John Deere and others who seek to lock out people from repairing their own hardware. You may have heard some, legends of McDonald's ice cream machines being legendarily out of commission across the United States. And that is due largely in part to the fact that there's only one company authorized to repair those machines. And I believe that is the manufacturer. Now, Gray, as someone who is big proponent of right to repair,
Yes.
What can you tell us about iFixit and what they've done with a McDonald's ice cream machine and what they are demanding from the US government?
So Taylor is the company that makes the McDonald's ice cream machines, and there was another company, I can't remember the name of it now, but they built a diagnostic that you could install into the Taylor machine that would basically tell you what was wrong with it and allow the franchisees to fix it. And McDonald's went to war. And so Ars Technica doing the thing that they do. They did some great investigative reporting. iFixit has jumped in, and they have torn one of these things down, basically looking at the parts and components of it. This is not a novel device. There's no other way to say it. It's just an ice cream machine. But there is, essentially, the way that it's been built to break. And it's incredibly disappointing. The McDonald's in New West was the one that I frequented quite often. For some reason, they have a shutdown at midnight every night. They actually stop the restaurant for 20 minutes. But I can count on one hand the number of times I was actually able to get ice cream from that particular restaurant. So I basically said, the Digital Millennium Copyright Act prevents people from breaking into the software of a machine to basically analyze and assess and then be able to repair it. iFixit is saying to the US government, This thing needs to have an exception for it, just like so many other technologies that we have, so that people can actually repair these machines, and so that franchisees aren't held hostage by Taylor. Not Swift, the company.
Yeah, don't get Tasia started.
It's like, what? My queen?
So from my understanding, I think one of the complicating factors with these machines is that sets them apart from the previous generations of machines is that they're simply not ice cream machines, but they don't simply freeze the mix. They also pasteurize the mix. So they do heating and cooling, which allows you to run them longer between cleaning cycles. And I guess that's one of the reasons that's used for like, oh, well, because these machines are, special, only the company that we get them from is allowed to service them. And that's probably part of their contract with said company. So
which is a subsidiary.
Yes. So if this exception goes through, then there may have to be some tweaks made to the contract. They're saying, well, now the U.S. government is making us open up repairs to other companies as well, because all these individual McDonald's stores, and including ones run by franchisees, it would be nice if they could get their machines up and running more and salvage some of those lost sales. I mean, some of the skeptics out there are saying, well, they just don't want to have to bother with them, so it's easier for them to just keep them offline. And that seems like a little sad. All I know is that I've never forgiven McDonald's for getting rid of chocolate and twist cones.
Yeah. The strawberry sundae was really my that's the hill I die on.
Moving on to other flavors is a couple of weeks ago was the 25th anniversary of Apple's iMac, which was released in 1998, and there was quite an extensive article written by a longtime Mac journalist, Jason Snell, and it was featured on The Verge. Jason Snell wrote for years and years for Macworld, and I think he still does on occasion as well. He's also a well-known podcaster, but did quite a comprehensive article on how the iMac saved Apple. And one could cast one's mind back to 1998 when Apple had just acquired Next, Steve Jobs' next act, so to speak, after Apple, and was integrating its operating system to replace the aging classic Mac OS. And they needed to do something different. They even ran an ad campaign called Think Different. And then there was the Microsoft investment and assurance that Microsoft Office would continue to exist for the Mac for at least 5 years. But some people say that Apple was close to the brink of bankruptcy, maybe 90 days away when some of these things happened. But one of the key parts of Apple's recovery was the introduction of the iMac, featuring a translucent plastic case, sort of very bold design.
Bondi blue.
No floppy disk drive, no legacy ports like ADB ports, only USB. It was very simple, and they ran advertisements that were basically saying that this is the computer that you get to get onto the internet. Very simple. You've got your power cord and you've got your Ethernet cable to plug in, and you're good to go. I think ads narrated by Jeff Goldblum. We saw various iterations over time. The following year, they added additional colors. They replaced a Bondi blue with blueberry, and then they had grape, tangerine, lime, and strawberry, I believe. You can collect the whole set. And it was definitely a sea change for Apple, and that set the table for them doing other innovative things, gave them the cash flow to do things like the iPod in 2001, the iPhone in 2007, the iPad in 2010. So and launched the whole I moniker, or the I prefix. Steve Jobs was ICEO for a while. It meant interim CEO, not internet CEO, but we saw Apple has been moving away from the I prefix lately. Anyhow, I just wanted to discuss very quickly with the two of you about maybe your experience with the iMac in your growing up with your computers, and ultimately what was your favorite design, because it went through a number of permutations over time. As mentioned, the original CRT model, Bondi blue, and then the later revisions in various colors. Eventually they had graphite and snow models. We had the one that's sometimes referred to as the sunflower iMac, the G4 flat panel that was reminiscent of Pixar's Luxo Junior lamp. and we saw the iMac G5, which was the slab in the snow white color, and then the Intel version of said slab. And then finally, they moved to various iterations of aluminum frames, starting off a little bit boxy and then moving to thin profile aluminum models as well. And then we saw the iMac Pro, which only lasted a single generation. And then the M1 iMacs, the 24-inch. They got rid of the 27-inch. So the iMac LCD models have ranged in size over time from 21 and a half inches all the way up to 27. There's been a 24 in there as well. So let's start with you, Tasia. Any thoughts on the iMac and your exposure to it throughout your computing history, and or what was your favorite model?
I have two reasons why the 1999 version of the blueberry flavors, as I'll call them, iMac was my favorite. Number one, that commercial was lit. I don't know if y'all remember that commercial, but it was so colorful. It was so bold. It was just so new in terms of anything you had ever seen before. And I feel like, I know it came out in 98, but that's when I really felt like it was like, oh no, this is like for the masses now. Like, here we go with this cool theory of color branding devices for people. And number two, it was in every TV show, including my most favorite show of all time, Dawson's Creek. You did not call my house between 8 to 9 p.m. on Wednesday evenings because it was Dawson's night. And you know what Dawson had in his room? He had an iMac, and it was like the 1999 version. I'm pretty sure it was the blueberry one. I can't find any screenshots to back me up. And yes, I looked it up. So I could be remembering this wrong in my mind, but I'm 99% sure that was the one. And it was like every TV show we watched had one of those flavors. And all my friends and I would just be like, we never owned them. And all my friends and I were like, oh man, I want that so bad. It's so cool. But this was back in the day when, like, I grew up on a farm. We still shared one family computer with that dial-up internet. And someone was always yelling, get off the internet. And it was just like, we weren't allowed to have this was not going to happen for me. As a side note, everybody's making their wish lists on here. Do you know what I would still love? A blueberry iMac from 1999 as a piece of artwork. So if anybody finds one, let me know. It's a love story.
Duly noted. Well, that's one thing is for sure is that as you said, we did see a lot of Apple products, but especially I think it really got crazy with the iMac. You started to see them everywhere in media. And even especially as they moved to the flat panel models, it was the perfect reception or computer. You see it in offices or at hair salons, for example, because it was the all-in-one nature of the unit. Gray, any thoughts or reminiscences on the iMac? Your favorite model, and also there's this notion of, has the iMac overstayed its welcome after 25 years and being untouched for 2 years since the introduction of the M1 24-inch iMac? And Apple's been very quiet on this topic. We've got beefed up Mac Minis, and we've got the revised Mac Studio, the M2 Mac Studio, very capable desktop machines that you need to plug into external monitors such as the Apple Studio Display. Are we beyond the era of the iMac now, Gray?
I will turn to Betteridge's live headlines. Any headlines asking the question can be answered with no. No, it hasn't. The iMac is
over 2 years, though. Come on.
It doesn't matter. It is ephemeral. It is eternal. I sold a lot of iMacs at Future Shop back in the day. I was a dyed-in-the-wool PC kid, and the iMac converted me. As a salesperson, I made $125 every computer I sold. So you better believe I was one of the number one salespeople in Canada. And just around the corner here, I got pulled into the Apple headquarters at Markham to take a look at this brand new operating system that they hadn't shown anyone yet. And they sent me back with a beta because the beta was being launched the next day, and a 64 megabyte stick of RAM, because the iMac on our shelf only had 64 megs of RAM and it needed 128 to run. And they wanted us to install it on that computer so the students at the local universities could come and take a look at it. That was super fun. I actually left that day with 3 sets of the Think Different posters, which are also around the corner there.
And those are worth a pretty penny nowadays.
Yep.
So which of the iMac form factors, despite the ones you maybe sold most often, that is still holds a place in your heart, Greg?
Honestly, the M1 Mac. It is refined. It is perfect. The only thing I would change, though, I would have a bigger screen. If I could have like a 34-inch.
Right?
Yeah. The 24 is just like, my parents have got one and I love it. And every time I go home, I'm like, they're looking. But it's just like, it's a beautiful, beautiful computer. I'm looking at an LG 34-inch monitor right now that I hate. It's just not beautiful MacBook. This thing. Just give me a 34-inch iMac, please.
Well, it's interesting that it's almost like it's reached its quintessential minimalist design. It doesn't even have an Apple logo on it anymore. Still has the chin, which is had since they went to the slab flat panel version. So people kind of expect that, and that chin houses the entire guts of the computer, which is wild. Everything, it's just so thin. They're so confident in their design, they don't need an Apple logo on it anymore. There's one on the back, which is great, but on the front, we don't need to be pushing that in your face. Well, similarly, the Apple Vision Pro headset that we talked about a couple of months ago, Apple logos on that too. And if Apple ever did a car, maybe we wouldn't see much in the way of Apple logos there. We'll see. But I agree. Like the 24-inch, I want one, but I need 27 inches and I need more than 16 gigs of RAM, please. So it's still hobbled by its regular M1 situation there. So maybe they're waiting for M3 with a smaller process, 3 nanometer process, more efficient chips, maybe a little cooler yet, because this is a pretty compact design. Rumor is that they may be working on a 32-inch version, which is probably bigger than I need. Frankly, we're at the 27-inch 2017 iMac that I've got right now is kind of the sweet spot for me, because I've got it flanked by 2 27-inch monitors. But they're all iconic in their own ways. But this final iteration, or if not final, their most recent iteration, is pretty iconic in its own right.
Can I give a shout out to my 2012 iMac? I paid $2,500 for it, which was fully loaded back then. Like, that's 2 gigabyte video card, 30 gigabytes of RAM, like the 1 terabyte Fusion drive. I sold that to a friend of mine 2 years ago, and he's still using it for digital photography. It won't die. Bless him.
As for myself, I have to say that I guess maybe it's because it's not the only iMac I've ever owned, but because I've got a few in the museum, but it's the one that I've really only ever used regularly, and that is the 27-inch 5K Retina model. As I mentioned, mine is a 2017. Picked that up from my father-in-law secondhand, and it's been great. Little difficult to upgrade, but I would say a runner-up just from sheer uniqueness, and the fact that it didn't last very long, kind of flamed out. It was a bit of an intermediary step until the tech caught up, and that is the Sunflower iMac. I have one of these in the museum, and it was just so radically different from the CRT model that preceded it. And there's an interesting story behind it as well. When Johnny Ive, the head designer at Apple, I guess had presented some prototype mock-ups for the iMac G4 to Steve Jobs, and I suspect that they were kind of not entirely dissimilar from the slab models that followed, but maybe weren't quite there yet. Maybe not quite thin enough, because again, over time, technology reduces in size and gets a little cooler to run, hopefully, et cetera, et cetera. And Jobs wasn't feeling it. And he said to Johnny, the legend is that they were walking through a garden as they were having this chat, as they would often do. And legend is that he said to Johnny Ive, let each part of the device be true to itself. So that was keeping the flat panel display on its own, keeping the motherboard in this unique dome shape as a base, and having this incredibly high quality stainless steel articulating arm where you could position the monitor any way you want, and no Apple monitors since then, or iMac since then, has given you quite the range of motion, and anything approximating that is like $1,000 add-on in some of the higher end monitors nowadays. But it was this very brief moment in Apple history. There's a bit of whimsy. It was at peak Apple whimsy, I would say. And I think it holds a special place in my heart. I had a friend who got one. It's like, this is so cool. This is so different. But alas, it was not to last, because they eventually got it into the slab. And then we saw the iMac G5 after that, and all the iterations to follow once they got it into aluminum and so on. So fingers crossed that the iMac sticks around. I think having an all-in-one still serves a purpose. And, just for simplicity on the desktop, again, I really like the beautiful displays, such as the 5K 27-inch Retina. And then once you start separating things into different units, it's just an extra little layer of complication and the like. Speaking of complicated, Tasia's life's got a little complicated lately. At least her relationship with YouTube has. Tasia, why don't you tell us about that?
I woke up one morning and my revenue was tanked by 76%. That's the short story.
And this is not the first time this has
I
happened to YouTube creators, correct?
Correct. So this happened on August 5th for me, and I didn't really know what was happening. And I thought it was a bug, like on the back end. Immediately, I was like, it'll work itself out. No big deal. It wasn't until like 12 days later for me that I saw a banner warning on the top of my analytics that said that ads had been removed or limited on one or more of my videos due to, quote, invalid traffic. So I had never heard of that before. So I went down this whole rabbit hole to see what that means. And basically, it's YouTube's super, super broad gray platform or policy saying that, like, if you have bot farms that are watching your videos or clicking on your videos, which I do not, if you encourage your viewers to watch the ads and click the ads, which I do not, if you like just do all these things, basically, that there's like 3 or 4 things they outline. And so obviously I wasn't doing any of those things. And then they have this super awesome language of, but even if it's unintentional and you don't know where the traffic's coming from, it's still your fault, and creators are responsible for the traffic to their channel, which I take great exception to that. And I'm literally, if it's the last thing I do on this earth, I'm taking this to the friggin' courts, and I'm going to have that law, that provision in that stupid outlined thing of invalid traffic removed. It is so asinine to me that one of the biggest, most influential, most powerful tech companies in the world would say to a creator that the creator is supposed to control where their traffic is coming from. If I could do that, I'd be the most influential freaking tech company in the world. I can tell you that right now. It wouldn't be Alphabet. So anyway, I did some digging, and this is a known issue since November of 2022. It's been hitting a bunch of channels, small and large, all different niches. And I thought I was just going to like tweet out into the void, to be honest. No. I have a running list now. Every day it's growing. I've honestly lost count at this point in my notes app. There's so many creators this is happening to right now, big and small. One person I interviewed today about it, same exact day as me, August 5th, that happened to him. And it's just like, there's too many of us at this point. YouTube refuses to admit there's a bug because that puts them in a whole issue with their own advertisers. So they're not going to admit that publicly. In my opinion, allegedly, what else do I have to say so they don't try to sue my ass? But like, it's crazy. It's a known issue, and a lot of YouTubers are afraid to talk about it because we're afraid about the repercussions of what will happen to our channel. We're getting the runaround from quote unquote support. Even the bigger channels that have dedicated liaisons are getting the runaround. They're getting different answers for this. And the kicker is all of us across the board, everybody I've talked to, our number one traffic source is YouTube search. So if y'all are feeding us this traffic and you can't control where it is, and you're going to give us this story that creators are supposed to control traffic to your platform, 3 of the 4 biggest traffic sources for me are all within platform. The one that's outside of the platform, external, most of that is Google search. So those are my top 4. So tell me how I control that. And they won't tell us what videos, they won't tell us how long this will affect our channel for. And also, they're still running ads on my videos. But they've tanked my revenue since August 5th, 76%. I'm out for blood at this point. I was sad. Tristan knows, like, oh my God. A week ago Friday, I literally cried all day. Like, I was just like beside myself. Cannot believe this. It's freaking devastating. And now I'm pissed, whatever stage of grief this is. But I'm pissed. And I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to stop, because this is like, if this is my whole personality now, that's what it is then.
Hell hath no fury, like a creator scorned.
As Taylor Swift says, there's nothing like a mad woman.
That's
And you made her like that, YouTube.
That provision is a weapon.
Yes.
Right?
How is that allowed?
So
legally? How is that allowed?
The easy thing to do here, and of course I would never advocate someone do something like this, but would be to employ a bot farm and go after Mr. Beast and all the prominent YouTube creators and send traffic their way.
Right.
Well, they're responsible for what you're doing. Right?
Correct. And this is exactly what we've all been saying, Gray. Like, everyone I've been talking to is, this would never happen to the Mr. Beasts of the world, the Marquez Brownlees, the PewDiePies, the whatever, name them, iJustine even. And if it did, the second that was flagged on their account, YouTube would be backtracking that so quick, would have that figured out so quick for them without them having to say anything. Can you imagine Mr. Beast sending out a tweet about this? He could decimate their company in one post. It would never happen. But for the rest of us, right? But for the rest of us, this is just like, we're supposed to sit here and take it and accept a policy that says it's your fault even if it's not your fault. I'm not going to take it.
In what universe?
So you messed with the wrong person's friggin' revenue. I worked so hard for this. Same with everybody I've talked to. Like, you're out of your mind. I've been posting videos since December of 2015. You're out of your mind. Like, it's been 3.5 years of every week. So yeah, before then I wasn't posting every week. I was posting maybe 3 times a month or something like that. But it's like, this has been the slowest, steadiest growth. And you're going to pull this.
And in what universe could you possibly know where traffic is coming from to your channel? And how are you supposed to control that? Like, it defies all logic.
This is what I'm saying. And when we can see on the back end our traffic sources, and most of them are internal from the YouTube platform, how is that invalid? And how am I controlling something on your own platform? Things I can control are the type of content I post, how often I post, if I respond to people's comments. Like, there's certain things creators can control. Again, I say to you, if we had the power to control traffic, you're out of your mind if you think I'd be sitting here talking to you guys right now. I'd be so rich. I would have the richest, most influential company in the world, because I would own tech, I would own marketing, because I would have complete control of what every company wants: traffic. Like, it's just like, it's insane to me. It's an insane policy. I'm offended. And the more these PR liaison people finally people are responding to us on Twitter because we're making enough noise. But the more they respond, honestly, it's pissing me off even more, because it's like this stupid canned response, this PR nonsense. No, I was told flat out no when I asked if a human could look on the back end of my account, because I kept getting told the system flagged your content. Well, like, a human built your algorithm, right? Like, humans coded this, your system, whatever you want to call it. If you go back in there and look, you're going to see there's no weird spike, there's no new traffic source, there's no something to go, this is strange. And then also, you're just going to punish us for even the risk, even if you're playing it safe and you think there's a possible risk of invalid traffic. You're going to punish us for months. You're going to take my revenue that I've earned over my dead body. I'll tell you that right now. I'm pissed. I'm sorry. No, I'm not sorry. I'm mad.
The question that I would ask is, looking at the accounts that had things taken down, there's got to be a commonality, right? There's got to be something that's triggering this bug.
Well, it's not even things being taken down. It's just the revenue dropping off a cliff, even though the views are still there.
That's what I'm saying. Something's being flagged. Something's causing that to happen.
Yeah.
So
everybody's trying to figure it out. Everyone was like, we've been trying things on our back end. People have been like, is it mid-roll ads? Is it like that if you don't do them manually? And, you know, what do you do? Is it this genre?
Did you mention China?
This type of content? Yeah, like it's we've all gone through it, and it's just
unless it's something entirely different.
I tried.
Unless there isn't.
We thought it was shorts at first.
Unless there is a malicious actor at Google.
I deleted all the shorts. We should
unless there is a malicious actor at Google.
Oh, the call's coming from inside the house.
Right? The impossible, once it's ruled out, everything left the improbable.
Like this, I'm not a conspiracy theorist by any stretch. This is too many people at the same time, again, to be happening to that you're going to say, oh, we've all just been actually hit with invalid traffic. And if it was some bot farm out of our control, you would see that reflected in the analytics. And also, again, should not be my problem. If you have one of the biggest companies in the world to build all these fancy algorithms and the system, then you should actually know what actual invalid traffic is. Figure it out, YouTube, and stop punishing us in the meantime.
Do you want the conspiracy extension of this? Who would benefit from smaller creators being disenfranchised with Google? Where would they take their traffic? TikTok.
Vimeo.
Twitch. Are we just going to start throwing out?
Fiddler.
Oh God, I'm going to get sued.
Dailymotion.com.
I'm just saying, in a world where a company has been at the heart of some things where personal privacy is, and they've been looking at shaping traffic and shaping public opinion, disenfranchise a bunch of creators, you bring over to your platform.
I see where you're going.
Yeah, I do see where you're going. How do we figure this out?
And why wouldn't they go over with the bigger gets, right? Like it seems.
But that's the thing. You get the smaller creators. The thing is, the big ones people would notice, right? You move slowly, right? The wheels of the gods grind slowly. They grind exceedingly small. You start small.
Yep.
So if anyone's listening and hasn't got where Gray's going with this, I'm just going to assume he's talking about X, and which is making moves in video, and they've got Tucker Carlson on there doing live streams and whatnot, and that is a place for growth potentially, because YouTube has generally gone pretty unchallenged in this domain, aside from in shorts with TikTok, and Meta has responded pretty well with Instagram Reels, and to a lesser extent Facebook Reels, to counter TikTok. But YouTube's shorts are honestly just polluting timelines, and
terrible.
And they're making creators play ball, and it's just so sad and desperate and such a waste of time. Like, I think it's, I don't know. I mean, we've talked about this before. Like every platform wants to do everything, and it gets like a little much, honestly, and just clutters up all the platforms. So yeah, interesting conspiracy hot take of the day. Is this like some scheme to get people disenfranchised and move over to X and use their
X marks the spot?
I see what you did there. So
if there's any hackers out there that want to help me,
Russia, if you're listening,
figure out. If you're hackers, this is an SOS. We need you.
Great. Now this video is going to get something. I mean, it's not like there's any monetization happening here. Okay, so Tasia, what are your next steps? Let's button this up. What are your next steps? You're taking it to the streets in what way?
Taking it to the streets. So I've created this whole list publicly, what I'm comfortable saying what the next steps are, because I'm sure you guys can imagine privately what my actual next step is going to be. But publicly, what it is tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. I've got a podcast going live on this. I've interviewed 4 creators this is happening to. I'm in group chats and support groups and DMs with other creators this is happening to. Then a whole group of us, we're going to also release YouTube videos on this, because you know what? We're already in the doghouse. We might as well stick it all the way in, I guess. Baby. I don't know. Like, we're all in now. So hopefully they don't punish us further for that, but we're all going to release videos around the same time as well between this week and next week, and just really, really get this on everybody's radar, because kind of like Gray was saying, like, if you didn't know it was happening, you wouldn't know it was happening. And so I didn't know this was an issue back in November of 2022 because it never happened to me until now in August. So it wasn't until I looked into it that I saw this was a huge, huge bug, and it's been an ongoing. And so I don't want other people to run into that. And so that's kind of the short-term plan publicly that I'm going to talk about.
Excellent. Well, we look.
She smirks because I have a lot of people. I have a lot of people on a list. If you
Well, we look forward to further updates, and next week I'm sure we'll be talking about said podcast and YouTube video. And best of luck fighting the good fight.
Thank you. I'm gonna need it.
All right, and just as a final thing, like it's one thing. I mean, this is part-time income for you. You've got your production company doing what you do, but imagine if this was like someone's full-time gig, and all of a sudden their income is dropping by 75%. Like, that's brutal. So
multiple people I talk to, it's their full-time gig, and it dropped between 80 to 90%. And I mean, for me, with the 76% drop, even having other clients and stuff, like, thank God I have them, it's still significant for me. And like, I have this other thing that is also my day job. So I feel for everybody regardless. And I don't care if ad revenue is 5% of your general income or 100%. It's principle of the matter, and you have earned it and put in the work to get that ad revenue, and for them to take it and continue to run ads on the content. She ain't gonna play like that.
Well, while we're in the mode of complaining about YouTube, just one quick other additional story here. News came out that YouTube will waive a creator's content violation warning if they attend a class. So a content violation could be something like a content ID match, where YouTube has detected that you've included stuff in your video, be it music or video clips. Sometimes we get hit with those warnings when we're playing movie trailers while talking over them. And we always appeal. And sometimes those appeals get accepted, and sometimes they get rejected because these people don't get it. We're not pretending to be the original work. We're providing commentary. This all falls under fair use. But the way the system is set up is that if you push it too far and try to escalate, and then if you still get rejected, you can actually get content strikes on your channel, which is not great, because you get enough of those, you can get A, demonetized if you've got monetization going, and or like your entire channel, or B, just like pulled off of YouTube altogether, because they have all the power. Well, now, Tasia, if you ever find yourself in that situation, you can just go to a re-education camp and take their training course, and then you'll be perfectly happy, and you'll never contravene their guidelines again. We've got a video from generally well-respected creator and blogger, and now Google creator liaison, Rene Ritchie, who poor guy had to go out and talk about this wonderful new initiative, which you can learn about, how to mea culpa with YouTube and show that you're going to be a good little sausage going forward. Tasia, any quick thoughts on this?
YouTube should take their own course. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah, what do we do when they
be like, I'm in trouble? I'm in danger.
No, I mean, I think this is cool. It's a good policy. I don't want them hiding behind the policy, because they have been known to erroneously flag accounts, not just like what they're doing to me with invalid traffic, but with content warnings and stuff like that. So I hope they're just not going to hide behind that and be like, oh no, you've taken this class already and you can't take it again, and now we're giving you a strike when like you're not doing anything wrong. So I hope it's in addition to, again, one of the things I want is being able to talk to a real human being.
And I think that gets to the heart of the matter. As you mentioned to me privately, in terms of the account support you get, well, as a creator with what, 50 plus thousand subscribers, there's only so much support you get. Once you hit that 100,000 subscriber mark, then you get a bit more personal service. But so much of these things are handled algorithmically, automatically. We've had at least one video totally removed from the platform because it violated their community standards, but no explanation. It's like, well, how are we
Yeah.
supposed to avoid that mistake in the future if you don't explain why? It's not like our content is like objectionable, except, when we get a little hot under the collar sometimes, but there was no,
They're totally going to remove this video.
but there was like, no, but it's like, what do you do? It's like, how are you supposed to learn if they don't even tell you? And you can't,
I
there's
know.
no, and that's the thing that's so frustrating with these large platforms, the social video platform like YouTube, but even the social media platforms like, Facebook, Instagram, and others. Like, it's, there's no recourse unless you know someone on the inside, or if you're a large enough quote unquote influencer and you can get attention, enough people complaining and retweeting you and all that kind of stuff to actually get some action to happen. And that is just such maddening part about this. But at least we got this course you can take now. Anyway, that's enough ranting about YouTube for now. Let's talk about more fun things like space. How about that?
Woo!
Well, last week we were going to report Russia missed it by that much. Unfortunately, their Luna 25 spacecraft ceased to exist after colliding with the moon. And that's rough. No one wants to see that. I think we all want all the space players to succeed. There's a little bit of schadenfreude online given Russia's antics in the last 18 months or so, but that's not the space folks, right? But, there's still a little bit of that serves you right kind of sentiment going on there. But soon after, there was also India had their lunar lander that was also aiming for the south pole of the moon, and they managed to land it. They had quite a lot of women involved in their team, which was a great landmark occasion for the India space program. Managed to land it, and now we have images being captured from the there's actually, before they touched down, there was images from the far side of the moon, and now their rover has descended, and it moved about 8 meters, and it's started sending video signals, and it had a near miss recently, but this is a testament to the onboard navigation. It just avoided a treacherous crater. So if you look at that crater, that would have been a bad situation if it had tumbled inside of that. So Gray, as the Momentous official space correspondent, what is your general take on what we saw with Russia's failed attempt at the moon landing and India's successful attempt, and what that how that bodes for the moon landings in general, and the international efforts, the diversity of efforts that we're seeing here? There's not many others. I think only the US, Russia in the past, and China and maybe Japan have landed on the moon. Mm-hmm. So what are your general thoughts, being having lived in this world for the last couple of years?
Yeah, so looking at Russia, I mean, obviously there have been a lot of political things that have gone on in space. A lot of the Russian cosmonauts are former military, and so there were some friction moments at the beginning of the Ukraine war. And I think anyone looking at some of the hubris that we've seen from some of the Russian Space Agency can probably look at this with I think I'm pronouncing this right. Ha ha! Guys, it's an aging space program. Brilliant scientists were once at the helm of it. Not so much anymore. And so just like the myth of the 10-foot tall Russian, the myth of the unstoppable Russian cosmonaut is not true. Let's forget about them for a while and look at India. Wow. Wow. Nailed it. Honestly, it's so great to see a brand new national team up there in space doing the things that we want to see people doing. That celestial body belongs to all of us. And the more progress we all make up there, the better it's going to be. It's basically these sort of near miss asteroids that kind of come close to us. It's kind of just, how's that space program coming? Because you're one rock away from being a non-species. So really, really great stuff. It's interesting seeing some of the themes of the For All Mankind playing out sort of in a microcosm here.
The Apple TV Plus TV series you're referring
Yes,
to?
yeah. So it's just kind of interesting to see some echoes of life imitating art. I'm excited to see what India does next. We've got the Americans are going back to the moon. We'll probably supply some sort of arm or foot or something. It's just what Canada does. We space body parts. So.
We had the Canada arm on the space shuttle. Now we're gonna have the Canada foot.
Yeah, why not?
Canada beaver tail.
That's in the cafeteria. So,
can you speak a little bit to the hunt for water on them? And I believe that is part of what this mission is from the India South Polar lander here.
So this is exactly, again, the themes of For All Mankind playing out, because this is really what the space program would have done if it had kept going with moon landings. This gives us, obviously drinkable water, but also fuel. There is helium-3 on the moon that is possibly a source for fusion. So basically, water in the south pole of the moon is life. It's a power source. It becomes basically the place where we go to get that foothold in, as we that becomes the next gold rush as we get into that space, not physically taking those spaces, but as basically inhabiting that celestial body. So water is important for pretty much everything that we're going to do up there.
And then this is in some ways a bit of a testing ground or proving ground for the next target, which is Mars.
Yeah, which I think personally we should be going to Venus. There is a 2-kilometer layer of Venus that is breathable oxygen in the atmosphere, and it's dense enough below us that you could float. Just saying.
Well, maybe we could walk and chew gum at the same time.
Cloud City would be awesome.
Lando. All right. Well, that's a little bit of good news at the tail end of that anyway, to offset our YouTube nonsense. Speaking of moons, however, just a quick little touch. We talked about the teaser for Zack Snyder's Rebel Moon, which is set to come out December 22nd, 2023. And reportedly, this project started off as a Star Wars affiliated story that didn't end up remaining in the Star Wars universe, and Zack Snyder went off and did his own thing. Gray, from what you've seen of Rebel Moon so far, do you think it's different enough from Star Wars to be its own thing, or is it going to feel to most viewers like, oh, this was kind of Star Wars but not good enough? I mean, thoughts?
I think it's actually going to the post-credit scene is going to reintegrate it back into the Star Wars universe.
They're going to find a lightsaber stuck in a rock in the desert.
Yep, straight up.
Well, that would actually be an interesting head fake for sure. Given it's on Netflix, I'm not entirely sure we're going to see that happen. But nice to see Zack Snyder back in the game and not simply decolorizing and re-editing past movies. I mean, he did the Netflix things. What was the Army of the Dead, and there's a couple ones.
The German comedy guy was good. The prequel.
Right.
Army of the Dead was not so good.
Yeah, I can't remember his name, but I know what you're talking about there.
Yeah.
Anyway, Rebel Moon, we'll see how it goes. 2-part Netflix film with part 1 coming December 22nd. Let's see what happens. Gray, were you ever a fan of Frasier growing up?
I enjoyed Frasier on Cheers. My ex-wife really enjoyed Frasier and watched it constantly.
Well, you'd be glad to know that there is a revival premiering in October on Paramount Plus.
I hope they bring back Eddie. I love that dog.
Oh, he's in the urn on the mantelpiece. Tasia, did you ever watch Cheers? I know you're a little generation gap here, but Cheers or
like
Frasier?
Reruns of Cheers I watched, and then I watched Frasier like when it was on, but not like religiously.
Is this the reboot that we've all been waiting for? Is Hollywood truly out of ideas?
Is Maris in it?
Yeah, I mean,
right?
Yeah, I want to know who's all coming back.
The best episode of that show was La Porte d'Argent, right? It's the one where they go to the spa and they're trying to get into the next room, and they finally get through the last door and it's into the alley. Beautiful.
So you've seen a few episodes then?
Yeah, no, I've seen all of them. Multiple times.
There we go.
Multiple.
All right. Let's get to our momentous picks and wrap this up. Tasia.
Well, because I'm a 17-year-old teenage girl, My pick is The Summer I Turned Pretty. And probably because it's got a ton of Taylor Swift Taylor version songs in it throughout season 1 and 2, and I'm here for it. And then I binged all of it, season 1 and 2, and then read an article about how it's like the new Dawson's Creek. And I was like, this is probably why I love it, because as you guys know from the top of the show, my personality was Dawson's Creek. That's just, we had like an insane viewing party when that show ended, and like we made outfits. I'm not gonna get into the whole thing, but anyway, we really did. So like, it's just a cutie little show. It's well done. It's got an awesome soundtrack, and I'm not going to apologize for loving it. It's on Amazon Prime. You know what I will say though? Prime is doing this nonsense of like weekly releases. If I wanted regular television, I would go back to regular television. However, you can binge season 1 and 2. It's out in those are out in completion. So if you want to catch up to where I am and be like a 17-year-old girl.
But
it's so
inquiring
good.
minds want to know what model of iMac may be featured in because
no, I mean, they're all like iPhones, and like, this is how it's changed, you guys. Computer. Nobody has one. It would be like having a printer. Like, no, what? Like, sometimes my neighbors text and they're like, can we print something at your house? Because I have a printer. I'm like the one person in the neighborhood with a printer. Anyway.
So
I've shown my hand. I'm not 17. Clearly, I'm 85.
Gray, your pick of the week. There was some news about this last week. We were going to talk about Gamescom, and we're not really going to cover it this week. Will Silver is not with us, as you may have noticed this week, and he'll be returning in a couple of weeks' time, hopefully. But there was some news that came out of this that relates to your pick of the week, which, if it's a video game, I wonder what it could be.
Destiny 2, the season of The Witch, has begun. Right off the bat, they have come out of the gate swinging with a plot point they've been leading up to for 9 years. And it's amazing. And 9 years for Eris Morn to become a hive god. It sounds...
Finally!
Yeah, no, it's like, this is... I remember playing Courtesan, like this was the second raid that came out, and it was tough. And, you know, this poor woman had her fire team killed. She survived the skin of her teeth, and now she is taking control of the very things that tried to enslave her. It's amazing. Great. It's awesome. I'm so excited for the final shape. But we got one more season, and then the final shape is the last year of the saga of Light and Darkness and Destiny.
So I've a couple questions for you. Do you find, I mean, if you play as much as, say, an average player, is there enough new stuff there to get you to the next season?
Yes. So basically they have like 8 weeks of content, and then they've got like, 4-ish weeks of like, you can relax a little bit. They've usually got like a special event that's going on, but they pace it. So every week we've got something new to do. Every week you get a new story point. And I didn't get a chance to play last week's stuff, so I'm gonna go in. I'm gonna play that, and I'm gonna play this week's stuff. So,
do they have a chill out room where you can watch Frasier?
No, you can do picture in picture.
Okay, perfect. And when do you expect that they may eventually get to Destiny 3?
They won't. This is the Destiny will continue on as a universe. Marathon is going to be the player versus player game, but I think the Destiny universe is going to evolve, and we're not going to see a Destiny 3. We're going to see Destiny. And
so they'll just dispense with the numbers.
Yeah, they shouldn't have done the number to begin with. It's like this. The Destiny 2 should have been Destiny continued.
Was there much of a hard break between 1 and 2?
There was, and it was terrible. Okay. A lot of the steps they took forward in 1, they took backward in 2. They were, again, a little like Apple, 90 days away from shutting the whole thing down. And they released something called the Go Fast update, and it changed everything. And
wow.
Got everybody back into the game. And it's one of the most popular games in the world now.
All right. My pick of the week is going back in time a little bit. And I wish I'd heard about this a little sooner, but a couple of weeks ago, friend of the show, Al, had mentioned to me that the VIF, or the Vancouver International Film Festival, was doing screenings all throughout the summer of 80s classics. It was called Back to the 80s. And they had everything from Raging Bull to Ferris Bueller's Day Off to Desperately Seeking Susan, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Ghostbusters, and more. I had the opportunity to check out a couple of 80s classics that I had never seen on the big screen before. One was the original RoboCop movie from 1987, directed by Paul Verhoeven. And it was funnier than I remembered. It was violent, but it was actually less violent than I remembered. And I think it's because I've become desensitized over time. And it was a good time, but there was more to come. There was also a screening of They Live, directed by John Carpenter, starring none other than Rowdy Roddy Piper. Tej, I wish you were in town, being the wrestling fan that you are. But again,
I definitely would have gone with you.
It was incredibly stupid, but the writing was rough. The first act was slow. I mean, I love movies from the 70s and 80s, despite their pace. I actually dig slow movies because I got nowhere to be. I'm all in. Let's just do this. Don't waste my time, but I'm willing to soak up the vibes. First act was pretty slow, but then once it got going, it's like, okay. And it was fun. It features one of the longest, most hilarious, stupidest fight scenes ever in cinema, which has to be seen to be believed. And it was a great time. There are a couple of days left in the Vancouver International Film Festival back to the 80s. If anyone in the Greater Vancouver area is interested, there's Hairspray, a couple more showings of Hairspray. One was tonight. Oh, at 9 o'clock, you got an hour to get there if you're watching live. And also tomorrow, 5:45. That's Wednesday, August 30th. They've also got The Thing tomorrow night, which I'd really like to see on the big screen, from 1982. Another John Carpenter classic, great creature feature. Again, with that and the other two, I'd only ever seen on video back in the day. Unfortunately, I cannot make this one due to other commitments. Sex, Lies, and Videotape playing this Thursday, August 31st. Do the Right Thing, which I did see at University of Victoria in the late 80s, early 90s. There's a theater there called Cinecenta, and they used to show all sorts of interesting stuff there. And I believe that's where I saw Do the Right Thing by Spike Lee. Anyhow, if you're in the Vancouver area and you are interested in any of those last few blasts from the past, well, you too can go back to the 80s, and you can check that out at viff.org. And then we have a couple of projects to talk about. Gray is a little bit mysterious because you listed a link for a tool, and I assume this is a tool that you've been using for your current project.
So this is my next tool. I'm one back there in the corner, and that is a vinyl cutter, and it is a laser cutter. And I've been doing some really cool stuff. Originally made a Samus t-shirt. We had some trouble figuring out how to get everything to work properly, but I finally got it all kind of dialed in. I made myself a cool new shirt yesterday.
Let's hang on. Let's get you bigger here. Cool. So how is it actually printing onto the shirt?
This is heat transfer vinyl.
Okay.
And so basically I've cut this out in gold and then in blue, two different sheets. And you take that, I've got a HTV Ront t-shirt press down there, and you basically put it on the t-shirt, slide it in, 315 degrees, 15 seconds, done.
Very cool. Yeah. Now, how does it compare to sort of the traditional t-shirts where you have offset printing, or what you often see a lot of very inexpensive t-shirts where they're doing digital transfer, and each of those has its own, I guess, resiliency profile, for lack of a better word. How do these hold up after washing?
Pretty good. Like really, really well. I have not had any of my shirts come apart. The first one that I did with sort of like the scraps didn't turn out so well, but the actual shirt that we used the proper image from, I believe is still great. And that's actually, the scraps have been kind of the fun part, because I've been taking all of the offcuts and then creating clip art. I'm going to put onto different fabric pieces and things like that. So this
very cool.
Yeah, I've been having fun with it. It's been my
project. So the next question is, of course, where and how will people be able to acquire some of your works? When will the masses be able to go to an e-commerce site?
That's an excellent question, and we're working on some things right now. So I'll have more for you next week.
Excellent. We're looking forward to it. The next phase of the Gray Williams empire. Nice. Speaking of empires, Tasia has got not one, but 2 YouTube videos for us this week. Not because she loves YouTube so much right now, but we had a little backlog since we missed last week's episode. Tasia, what were your 2 most recent YouTube videos?
I did a top Chrome extensions for 2023. There's a lot of productivity ones in there, and spoiler alert, they work across browser. So if you're not a Chrome user, you can still watch that video if you want. I don't care anymore. And then you can, and then just go look up the extensions for the browser of your choice.
But you're not.
That was the.
But
first
you're not
video.
advising anyone to click on the ads.
Nope, I'm at this point saying, what's the point of even watching them? I'm getting next to no money. So.
And your other video?
Maybe it's you.
Yes, it's me.
Maybe it's you.
I'm the bot
from
farm.
Momentous. You are the bot person. You are clicking on these videos for this live stream. Then last week's video was about an addition to Google Photos editor on the web, and some things that you can do there now that would be very familiar for people if you use the Google Photos app, if you use a Pixel device. There's finally some updates to the web.
I heard, in related news, I saw a story today or yesterday that Google has added a feature to Google Photos whereby you can now sync private folders where you were not able to previously. So if you've got your sensitive images in there, I think previously they were locked to one device, but now they've got the end-to-end encryption so they can sync across multiple devices. You doing a video on that sometime soon?
They have a few things rolling out, that some things I have not gotten access to yet. So I have like a running list of Google Photos things that I'm just like every week checking, and I'm like, nope, don't have it yet. So it's just like, as soon as I get my hands on these things, I'll make content, because apparently that's what I do.
Have you tried publishing on X?
I think I probably should.
Just when I thought I was.
Did I go too hard on YouTube tonight? This is like the biggest breakup of all time. No, I'm not breaking up. YouTube, it's just a fight.
Right.
I don't want to leave.
You're not going to Daily Motion?
Don't kick me out. Never.
E-bombs rules.
That's right. Ogrish.com.
Ooh.
From the Department of Stop Us Before We Create More Content, as alluded to in past episode, Tasia and I have been working on this little podcast called, not called How to Resurrect the Dead with Generative AI. That's simply an episode title. It was AI named this show because we're a fan of stupid names for podcasts, and that's the best we could come up with. Or did the AI? Who knows? So we've got a couple of episodes out now on the website at AInamedThisShow.com, and we will soon be available on all your favorite podcast players. In this episode, Tasia and I talked about people creating digital AI clones of their loved ones, and hilarity ensues.
Digital death bots. Dun, dun, dun.
So more to come as we get into a regular release schedule there. And once we have a few in the can, we will be out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Amazon Music, because why not? And Google Play or Google Podcasts as well while we're at it. Tasia, I forgot to mention that your work is available at youtube.com/Tasia Custodi and TasiaCustodi.com. And you can find out more about us at momentous.tv/links, momentous.tv/team, and momentous.tv/podcast. Will Silver, we miss you. We hope to see you again soon. Great. Nice to see you again. And, we hope your week is something. Anyone?
Truly momentous?
Despite YouTube?
Question mark?